Guys, I'm going to go ahead and assume that we're live here. Normally, when we do a comic book show on this channel, it's usually like a rainy Sunday. And today we have a gorgeous sunny day going on outside. So probably after the stream, I'll be going outside a bit and get some stuff done. And I'm definitely live. Alrighty. Okay, guys. So some of the things I want to just kind of talk about. We may go through everything here. We may not. We'll just see how it goes. Is part of comic books and the movies and the things that we watch that hit. One of the big things that you usually run into are post-apocalyptic themes, which blows my mind because as terrible as that would be in real life, the fact that there's actually a subgenre of uh, of that being a theme to explore, social issues and the human nature of man, and thinking that we're so advanced that we can be blown to the Stone Age at any minute. I mean, it's really a dark, dark concept. Yet there's just all kinds of stuff and fun that we can find within that within fiction. And I think maybe some of that comes down with this great, big, huge subconscious fantasy blowing up everything and starting the hell over. You know what I mean? So I kind of think there's some kind of humor to it. And it just, but as I was going through this, I was just picking things off the shelves. I was picking little books over here. I was going through my movies over here. And it did surprise me how much stuff I have. It's that what really got me thinking is like how long the subgenre has lasted. Because I don't think the whole idea of a post-apocalyptic world and dystopian ideas really came about until probably big time until like the nuclear bomb of World War II back in 45. I know we can trace the roots back to of science fiction to Jules Verne and things like that, and War of the Worlds and stuff. But just a lot of stuff that has accumulated over the years, and it really surprised me how a majority of my stuff, if I really started digging for post-apocalyptic stories and stuff, is through anime. I don't have a lot of anime. Hey, what's up? Do some stuff for me too, Tim. What's that obscure band on your shirt? That would be Iron Maiden. So obscure. Stranger in a Strange Land. They have post-apocalyptic themes as well. Okay, so just kind of peck, go through some things. I mean, let's just hit the king of all things when it comes to post-apocalyptic comics and stuff. Let's just hit it with Kamandi, big time. Kirby's Kamandi. Okay. What was really great about this series is that you never really knew what caused the great disaster that hit. You walk around and the world has changed. Animals are talking. They talk about radiation causing a lot of things with the animals taking over. Humans are shot, blown out of hell. And it really goes back to Planet of the Apes was what they were looking for. Yet they found a story, I think in Astonishing Tales #1 or something like that, from the late 50s that Kirby had done with this concept of the talking animals in the post-apocalyptic world. So a lot of sci-fi in the 50s touched on that. But that was the one for me, comic book wise, that just fascinates me because not only is the world blown up out of hell, and we get an idea of a lot of time has gone by since it happened, but Kamandi emerges from this bunker where he didn't know what the outside world looked like. He thought the outside world looked like the present of the 70s, 1970, early 70s and stuff, through videotapes and stuff. And he comes out, and we are right there with him as readers. And the main character, through his eyes, we're discovering this world. Hello from Canada. Glad to catch another one live. What's up, David McKenzie? Yeah, I'm starting a little bit later than I normally do. So I'm imagining a lot of people are outside enjoying the weather and probably watching movies and all this stuff. Usually I do these in the morning. So, hopefully the time change across there. How many issues did it run for, and where was there, and was there any issues that didn't cut the mustard? Talking about, I'm going to assume you're talking about Kamandi. I think Kamandi ran for 59 issues, and I actually have a Kamandi special that came out a couple years ago when DC did Kamandi Challenge to celebrate Jack Kirby's birthday, where they printed finally the 60th issue, I think. I think you just 36 issues, going up to about 40 and all that stuff because Kirby left, and I never felt like anybody really had a handle on the character after Jack Kirby left. His run, where he wrote, drew, edited, and did everything on it, is a classic to me. I don't think you have to be just a Jack Kirby fan to really appreciate those books. But like I said, I've said it before the past couple times that Kamandi's come up in my videos. Back in the 80s and even into the 90s, if you were into Kamandi and you talked about Kamandi and OMAC and stuff, even seasoned comic book collectors kind of looked at you like you were weird. You were way deep into the hobby. One of the first post-apocalyptic comics I remember reading was the Doomsday Plus 4 series from Charlton by John Byrne. I've got those in the Fantagraphics. I just didn't feel like digging it. But, Scott, that was a nice segue to get away from Kamandi there because we'll be bouncing around a little bit. But John Byrne, as a tongue-in-cheek sort of deal, he had a Doomsday Plus 1. I think that's what it was called in the 70s when John Byrne, who ended up being the big superstar on X-Men, Marvel 2 and 1, Superman, Fantastic Four, Wonder Woman, all that stuff, came about. One of the first books he actually worked on was for Charlton Comics. I have a lot of those through Fantagraphics. I think there's like maybe 8 of them that he did, and then Charlton just started reprinting them. They picked up like issue number 9, and instead of the same number, starting over with the numbering, they just kept it going, reprinting those. So number 1 was also number 9, number 2 was also number 10, something like that. I'm in the ballpark. So years later, Byrne is working for IDW. From what I hear, one of the people at IDW grew up on Byrne, so they just give him as much work as possible because he cut ties with Marvel over how they screwed him over on X-Men: The Hidden Years, whatever happened at DC and stuff. And he came out with a little 4-issue miniseries. I think that's how many there were. This may not be all of them, but yeah, it's called Doomsday Plus, Doomsday Point 1. It has nothing to do with Doomsday Plus 1 back in the Charlton days, but this is just we've had the bombs have gone off, and we follow some characters and stuff trying to get somewhere. I mean, it's a real thin plot. It's really sort of direct on what he's doing. He messes with he plays around with storytelling techniques through time to really move you along through the story. But it's one of those things, if this was a movie, I would say just grab you a handful of popcorn and don't think about it and just read them. Okay, so Doomsday Plus 1 has a bit of a cult following, simply because it's one of John Byrne's first book. People who like Charlton, it's an alternative. And when I read the series, I did a video way back in the day. I think I just titled it simply Before. What I said about it was that basically it was a B movie that would be on Mystery Science Theater. It read like a real B movie you would see at a drive-in in the early 60s or something. It was really bad, but you actually got to see John Byrne's art improve through that. So if you're a fan of John Byrne, it's more about seeing his journey as in the industry and stuff. One of the first books, yeah. I remember getting those in bagged 3-packs of comics from a local grocery store. I've been hearing a lot of memories that have been sent to me in messages and on Facebook and stuff of people remembering getting those 3-packs of comics, a lot of Whitman stuff too. Hey, it came in X this year, man. People are piling up in here. So we've touched Kamandi. We've touched Doomsday Plus 1. We talked about Charlton a little bit. But they started sort of expanding that Kamandi line. Kirby had come to DC, had his 4th World Series canceled out from underneath him. He was still putting out books because I think he was contracted to turn in 15 pages of art and story per week. So Kamandi was the big book that was a success. He had another one called OMAC, which they ended up trying to tie into Kamandi. OMAC was dystopian a little bit. And OMAC was actually his idea he had while working at Marvel for a Captain America of the Future. But the way Marvel was doing them, he kept it to himself. That's why it popped up at DC. But after he had left DC again and Kamandi carried on and stuff, they sort of started playing around with more ideas of this post-apocalyptic world, and we got Hercules. As of the myth, Hercules has been chained to a rock, and he ends up breaking free of the rock right after the explosion. Now it started out slowly thinking that this was probably started out the way a book set in its own post-apocalyptic world, but soon we ended up getting hints of things that happened in OMAC, a little bit in Kamandi, talking animals and stuff. And then all of a sudden we had the Atomic Knights come in big time. Thus, they ended up pulling up the 50s and 60s stories of the Atomic Knights that took place in a post-apocalyptic world. Now, this had a lot of great people on it. Dave Michelny, I think, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez, Wally Wood, just a lot of things. I think I only read for like 12 issues. Walt Simonson came on. And you can actually put a shame that didn't happen. And then we actually ended up having this put out. This showcase that I picked up at Ollie's and stuff. I waited years for this to come out, called The Great Disaster. And what they did is they took, they just collected a whole bunch of their post-apocalyptic stories, great disaster stories, if you will. A lot of them do not connect. Is this working? Hey, Tuesday's Rose was out rain. That's right, down here for us, that's amazing. But they took a lot of things, printed them black and white, from Strange Adventures and Hercules Unbound. They put the Atomic Knight stories. They put the entire Hercules series I just showed you in this. And this is just a really great collection of stories that you wouldn't believe that, you know, you go digging in that Silver Age and stuff, you'll find some dark stuff and some very smart stuff. You can feel the EC Comics influence in some of these, you know. Great stuff of the era. Might have to look at that the next time I go to an Ollie's. Yeah, good luck. This was really, this is one of the showcases that was selling pretty quick. And actually, I think I got this for like $3.99, and it was originally $19.99. I haven't seen it since the summer anywhere. So we'll just set that down. But I've gotten through quite a bit of it. Okay. Now, moving on to Garth Ennis, the guy who did The Boys and Preacher, Hitman, Punisher. A guy came in and was just a big tornado with his work and stuff. Hey, Eric. Good to see you, Eric. All right, awesome. But one of the stories I liked was two 4-issue miniseries. And actually, the first one was printed through Wizard Comics. The guy who owned Wizard Comics ended up trying to put out some comics. I want to say they were called Black Bull or something like that. I'm just shooting from the hip today, but he ended up somehow snagging. Yeah, it doesn't say who it is. He ended up snagging Garth Ennis and let him do a book called Just a Pilgrim. He also did it with one of the co-creators of Judge Dredd, Carlos Ezquerra, and this thing was just fantastic. The sun grew like 3 sizes or something, and it was just enough to burn us. You know, we lost our oceans, they evaporated, and then the sun let off a little bit. And we had a post-apocalyptic world because of the sun. People are, you know, it's not quite back to the Stone Age, but it feels more like they're in the Wild West. And in the middle of this, you have the pilgrim walking through there. And he's a very religious person. And that's one of the things about Garth Ennis that kind of turned me off about him in the early years, is that this is a guy who professed to be an atheist, yet he would put a lot of religion in his work. But this was very smart, talking about faith and stuff. And of course, it's got that dark humor of Garth Ennis. One of the people in the caravan trying to get across our desert, which used to be an ocean floor, ends up getting grabbed by a ghost, and then grabbed by some gigantic creature that's, you know, morphed into just a beast. Comes out, snatches him up, takes him down, spits him out later, and he turns into a great big huge, looks like a giant nutsack, a hairy nutsack with a head and little hands and arms, and he's impregnated. So there's things like that that they just put in here. And the second miniseries, nowhere near as good as the first miniseries, but we're getting off Earth. And the whole thing about it is do you take religion and the Bible off to another planet and start influencing that place? That's a big deal. And I think Garth Ennis signed this for me. Yeah, Ennis signed this for me, which was fantastic. Let's see. One thing I like about some comics from the Bronze Age that didn't run for very long, so they're easier to collect. Yeah, you know, there's a lot of stuff from DC and stuff that was really good that's forgotten. Rima was one of those books. Kong, a lot of that was the DC implosion going on. But the Skull of Slayer, you can find that at Ollie's up here. The complete Skull of Slayer, you can find that real cheap right now. All right, moving on to a one-shot prestige format book by Howard Chaykin. Howard Chaykin, you have to watch. Howard Chaykin does not like superheroes. I'm not real sure why he's in the comics because he has said some stuff where I couldn't tell if he was telling the truth or if he was just trying to be a character and get people to notice him and stuff. But he does not like comics. So he kind of pulls in different influences, sets them in different settings. And one of the things they did in the post-apocalyptic story is called Distant Fires, with the great Gil Kane and Kevin Nolan doing inks over them. But there has been a disaster. The computers came alive. He does this quote. Howard Chaykin starts out with this quote that somebody in the 50s said we shouldn't have more than 12 computers running ever. And I think the computers got together, shot all the rockets off, blew up the world, and the heroes are kind of coming up out of the rubble. Mainly Superman, of course, and he doesn't have powers, but the powers slowly start returning. He starts finding the other heroes. They have taken on other roles in this post-apocalyptic world, and Superman's really calling the shots. And I think he calls for no powers or something. But there's little curious things he does, sort of like Martian Manhunter has found his religion again. Ends up becoming sort of a priest, and then of course they're setting up the Shazam Superman fight, if you will. There's reasons they can't use their powers. Let's just put it that way. I don't want to give up the plot. But what's really for me was when I was reading this that I found interesting is when I was about 12, one of my stepdad's friends, I had pretty much a pulp library. You know, a lot of people from the 70s and 80s had their pulp library, you know, pulp books library. And there's this book by Andre Norton called Starman's Son that's set in a post-apocalyptic world. This is my favorite book. It goes back and forth between Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and this. But what really got me is that it was the animals. There's giant rats and giant cats in a distant fire, and there's in here there's rats who's they're bigger, their skulls are bigger, they're able to think, and then there's gigantic house cats that are as big as a couch, if you will, and stuff, right? And they're much smarter and they're more loyal and stuff, right? But there's little shades of that in this. I don't know if it's the tone or what was going on, but I really feel like this influenced this. Let me what I got here. Let me put my glasses on. Yep. Chatting about this stuff like that. All right. Now, right now, as of today, one of the more recent titles that, and I've heard this is getting turned to a TV show or a movie or something, but wouldn't call it quite post-apocalyptic, but it was definitely a dystopian and a great disaster stuff. But Why the Last Man? This book was on fire about the whole time that it was being published till about halfway through, and people were used to it and things have come. But when this book started out, basically anything with a Y gene, which would be male, died on the spot. They didn't know if it was a super virus or what. The women survived, and now it is a world without men, except for an escape artist named Yorick and his monkey. I can't remember the monkey's name. And yes, they suspect that the monkey is the key as to why he survived. So this really explores the world and explores religion. It's got different settings. It shows how people get messed up and brainwashed and go for power. I mean, it's if they did a Walking Dead show, it would look a lot like this if you took out the zombies. Yeah, that was the story where Billy was evil and stuck as an adult. Yeah, I think I might have a delay here on my chat here, but yeah, the distant fires, something like that's going on. Yeah, so this is good stuff here. But Why the Last Man? I really enjoy this when I get through here. I've had this over the years. I had almost a complete set twice. I get rid of it. I had almost all the trades twice. But I have about three or four of the trades, and I might end up doing this. But the ending of it's really what kind of pissed me off. A lot of people liked it. I was just sort of like, oh, I see what he was doing, but yeah, it leaves a lot to be desired by the end. And I'll go ahead and tell you the artist on this. I've caught her on Twitter a few times. Horrible person. Horrible. I'm going to call it out. So I was so glad that I was able to enjoy this before knowing her attitudes, if you will, because I would not have wanted to support an artist with like that. Okay. And then we've got, I mean, come on, man. Judge Dredd. I have become such a huge Judge Dredd fan in the last years. Judge Dredd was always sort of there for me. You know, Anthrax back in the day had the song "I Am the Law." So I started like, what is this? And you would hear people in magazines and stuff talk about that they'd gone to England and found some Judge Dredd books and stuff, right? And then in the 90s, he really took off here in America, in the States, in my opinion, when they'd had the big Simon Bisley, Alan Grant crossover with Batman and Judge Dredd. And for me, that's when he really took off. But the last few years with the movie Dredd and stuff, I'll be showing some movies here in a minute. They're all mixed up over here. Oh my God. That was, I mean, the 90s Judge Dredd, I just ignore, act like it never happened with Sylvester Stallone. I hated that movie. Oh my God, I can't believe what they did with it. But then a few years ago, back in like 2012, I think, we got our movie just plain Dredd. And oh my God, I loved it. That is a classic. I've heard back and forth there's going to be a TV show, there's not going to be a sequel. It is really a crime against humanity that there is not a sequel to that movie. Yeah, awesome, man. Drock it. But there's so much Dredd stuff out there. God almighty. The guy's been kicking since the 70s. Strontium Dog. I discovered Strontium Dog probably about 5 or 6 years ago here in America, and I came on here to one of my videos. I can't remember if it's a live show or not. And I was like, I get that the same people who created Dredd were involved in Strontium Dog, and when I said that Strontium Dog was nothing but a clone of Judge Dredd, first time people came after me, and they were right. They were right. Judge Dredd is supposed to be based on an old teacher at a private school in a town I live in. That would be cool because I have never heard that. That would be fantastic. But it's the world building they did in Judge Dredd that got me. Mega cities that are so big. I mean, the world overpopulated. I think there were some nuclear wars, but the world overpopulated at the same time, and cities became so huge that they take up entire coasts. Like Mega City One would be like from, I don't know, Maine down through New York, all the way down to like Georgia or something like that. That is considered one city. Well, last man, I read that when I was younger. I like Agent 355. Was that her name? 355? Okay. I'll take your word on it, Cayman. I discovered Judge Dredd and martial law epic at the same time. Yeah, martial law, man. Martial law. Ah, I should have got that. Martial law. I would take martial law over Judge Dredd for my taste. That's a whole other video and stuff, man. But I love my Dredd. Don't get me wrong. By a hair, you know. But well done to you for talking about martial law. But Judge Dredd, the fact that it's I love the concept that there's so much crime and so many people. The only way to have any kind of order in all of this is you make your police officer a jury and a judge who does the sentencing on the spot. He's also a witness. That is so fascist. Yet when you read the book and get a taste of that world, how violent it is, and how, like, I mean, really, one building is more like a neighborhood, and so that's people's world. Some people never leave. They grow up in these gigantic apartment complexes, is what we want to call it, and they never come out. And there's so much stuff, but they also turn around and the whole idea of oh man, I lost my train of thought there. There's something I was going to say. Oh yeah, just it's really interesting because Judge Dredd is actually a very literal character. He's not about justice. He's about the law. The letter of the law. You're breaking the law. And then they end up world building as you read it. One of the things I thought was fascinating is once you reach a certain age as a judge, you have to retire by going underground. There's a whole world underground of these mega cities and stuff, right? Or you're cast out into the wasteland. And one of the stories I'm dying to find to read, which apparently there was a story that went out on in I don't know, something like 12 months or something in 2000 AD, where it was just a boy and a man going across the desert. And by the very last chapter of that story, all of a sudden they get to the gates of where they're trying to get to. It's Mega City. And all of a sudden the old man that you have followed all this time ends up putting his helmet on, and you've been with Judge Dredd the whole time and didn't even know it. It's a Judge Dredd story. You didn't even know it was Judge Dredd. Yeah, I just read the first Judge Dredd casebook file of him aging in real time. Came next. She had a real name, but Agent 35 was her code name. Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, yeah. I'm just going blank. I do that when I do these live shows and I end up kicking myself. All right. And now something I'll be getting into. Now, Deathlok, it's really interesting. For as long as I have been in comics, I've known who Deathlok was. I didn't actually get to read an actual Deathlok story until I was probably about 9 or 10. and it was in the Gaiman, Mike Zeck, not Gaiman, JMW's and Mike Zeck run of Captain America. They had a 3-issue Deathlok story in there. And then as Deathlok sort of became more popular, I was really confused because I couldn't tell if it was, I wasn't really picking up the books, nor did I want to. But when I did end up reading a Deathlok story, I was a little bit confused because it didn't feel like the earlier stuff. Well, I just recently found out there's been 3 different Deathloks, and I wanted to stick with Deathlok the Demolisher, the Luther Manning version. And this is just fantastic. He died, he woke up, he'd been merged with a computer. I didn't realize how I'm telling you, man, this book, this character in the '70s by Doug Munch and Rich Buckler had to have influenced RoboCop. I mean, there's just certain concepts of RoboCop that's right here, or maybe it's just the zeitgeist. You know, maybe there's just a certain way of thinking of what it would be like to take a dead body and put cybernetic parts on it, you know, and put it on here. But it's a real liberal, real subtle. The government and the military are the bad guys. You know, we'll just put it that way. He looked a bit like Eddie on the Somewhere in Time album cover. Yeah, I showed up just in time for Deathlok. Yeah, I'm just kind of holding up stuff and talking about it, but you know, there's a theme here. But stuff is just really good. This is a complete collection I got at Ollie's for $7.99, and for this stuff to have come out in the '70s, it's just fantastic. It even has the Marvel 2-in-1 that I have, and that's one of the first block stories I got to read. And then it actually goes all the way up to where it reprints. I have this signed by Mike Zeck, a gigantic print of this issue. We get into the Captain America stories where we get some Luther Manning there. But just fantastic stuff. Real cool sci-fi. I just love it. And then we go back to, Planet of the Apes that influenced so much. And I think this was the story that really brought the concept of a post-apocalyptic world into people's consciousness, because this was something where you see how we fall and something else takes over. And it was monkeys, a lot of stuff. Loved that movie. And then Marvel got the licensing, had all sorts of a regular series going on, magazines coming out, just really good stuff. And then of course they've survived over the years through different companies. What we got here? Marvel 2-in-1 number 27. Deathlok tries to kill President Carter at his inauguration. I think, yeah. Like I said, there's a lot of political stuff in that Deathlok story that falls to the literal side stuff, and it sounds like they're doing a little bit of Manchurian candidate there in that one. But the whole concept, the bigger idea of Deathlok being that cyborg man and the struggle with him, he's such a strong character that they were able to tell a lot of things around him. Everything else seems subtle. Did you know that RoboCop was actually a Transformer? His real name was Optimus Prime. No, that's funny, Scott. Yeah. I'm glad I wasn't Drake when I read that. I would spit all over myself. Yeah, you're cracking everybody up. And now some movies. This was sent to me by a guy who used to make YouTube videos. I have no idea if he still does. Years ago, called Metropolis, a very dystopian future. And I freaking love this movie. It's the idea of robots and just a lot of great stuff in here. But this was fantastic. This was a reinterpretation of the Metropolis, the black and white movie by Fritz Lang. And I'm telling you, man, there was 2 or 3 scenes in here with the backgrounds and stuff where I swear I was expecting Rorschach to come around the corner. It had a very Watchmen feel somehow. It was very interesting. Hey, yeah, happy St. Patrick's Day to everybody that's popped up out there. Awesome. Um, so yeah, Metropolis was really good, and I ended up watching this like 3 times in 3 nights. It was just fantastic. I just love the animation. I'm very, how can I say this? I'm not a huge fan of anime, even though I respect it. But my God, when there's a good movie, there's a good movie. So my interest in the movies I have and the things I've watched is very like looking through a keyhole, man. There's just, I either like it or I don't, and when I do, I love it or I hate it. That's all there is to it. Um, 2 more, with that in mind, the Vampire Hunter D's. Oh, these are so freaking good. These things are set so far in the future. There had to have been a disaster somewhere. Uh, the Vampire Hunter D movies. There's 2 of them. I've got some of the little mini novels that someone had made. I've got a comic book that came out for 1 issue, and that was about it. We'll never know when it's going to return. And but the Vampire Hunter D, these two cartoons are just so fantastic with the mood setting, the animation, the twist on the horror, mixing it with sci-fi. You just can't go wrong with these, man. And I got so mad. I got so mad at this movie called Van Helsing that had the dude that played Wolverine in the. I can't believe I'm missing his name right now. But he was trying to get into another franchise, and they were trying to start up. They were taking the Universal horror movies, giving them an updated twist, and they were going to have Van Helsing going around killing them. And I guess I don't even know if they were going for a steampunk kind of feel or what they were doing, but it was just horrible, horrible. And all I could think is they made Van Helsing look like Vampire Hunter D. I was just sitting there shaking my head, so freaking mad. And then I was sort of relieved that these people didn't get a hold of Vampire Hunter D and tried to make a movie of him because it was so bad. These are just so damn good. The movie was based on an Osaka Suzuki manga based on the old movie. Nice, nice. Thank you, Cayman X. That's fantastic. Now, when it comes to anime history and the creators over there and stuff, I'm always wanting to know more. That was just something I was never exposed to over here. I grew up in the time where if we did get some anime. It was called Japanimation, and the cuts were so bad, and the voice acting was so bad, and the movies were chopped up to so bad you just thought everything was garbage. And then you started seeing the actual real movies coming over from Japan on VHS that weren't dubbed, they weren't cut up, and it just blew your mind. So yeah, I kind of got screwed growing up on that stuff. The stuff I got to watch was on Showtime and a show called Force 5 that was only shown in New York, Pennsylvania, and America. It had the Star Avengers, Vanguard Ace, Mazinga Z. It's somebody else, but somebody had bought up four shows from the 70s. On Battle of the Planets, of course, in the 70s. That was my very first anything from Japan. But the Force 5 shows, they took four shows and they sort of made an anthology series out of it. And Star Avengers were my favorite. Oh my gosh, they were so good. Um, the people that made Van Helsing owe Gary Gianni a royalty check for his look for Solomon Kane. Yep, I can agree with that also. Totally agree. And just for a heads up, my girlfriend brought Netflix into the house, and I found the Solomon Kane movie that I heard about years ago on Netflix. So if there's any Solomon Kane fans out there, the movie is on Netflix. I'm the last to know. What do we got here? Space Sheriff gave in an old live action Japanese inspired Robocop's design. Cool. I've looked that up. Cayman X apparently seems to be the anime dude. All right. The production company that took the Japanese shows and Americanized them was Sandy Frank Productions. Yeah, that's it. That is it. I want to look some of those up on YouTube after we get off here. Now, oh, I didn't grab the cartoon series, did I? But I have the complete cartoon series from Liquid Television that was on MTV back in the day. Liquid Television was just fantastic. It was like Heavy Metal Magazine brought the television. That's where you got Liquid Television spawned the Head, the Max, and it had all these great shows and Eon Flux on it. And eventually they made a movie of Eon Flux that I can't recommend it. I really can't. This movie is so damn bad. Um, why do I have it? I, I'm a completist. I just try to get my Eon Flux where I can. The cartoon is fantastic. And I think going to this movie, I was hoping it's going to answer some questions that were left as mysteries in the Eon Flux, like how she died over and over and over, things like that. And yes, it sort of answered it, and the cartoon sort of answered it. But all of a sudden, the creator started doing interviews, and you would read a whole lot if you were really into this. So here is a movie that I just can't recommend, but it is of the dystopian type nature of the genre. The world meets the most. Oh my God, it was so bad. Solomon Kane inspired D in that movie. I could see that. Of course, I was talking about Dredd a minute ago, and this is the good one. Who was it? I keep getting the guy's name wrong. Keith Urban. Is that right? Carl Urban. Sorry. Man, he did such a good job as being Dredd in this. And what was so great about it is that when you get to the end of the movie, this is just another case. This is just a day at work for Dredd. How these guys don't have PTSD and all this stuff, I'll never know. But this was just so freaking good, man. Oh, I mean, oh, I can watch this over and over and over. Of course, we have Planet of the Apes again. You know, I have always loved the Planet of the Apes. I was my attitude, the way people were with Star Wars is how I was with Planet of the Apes. I studied those movies. Actually, I did not bring it up. I actually have the French book that those movies are based on that came out in I think the 50s. And which one is it? Return from the Planet of the Apes. The third movie actually follows that book more. You just kind of got to switch it. When they landed in the book, the people lived like they did in New York, like almost like in the 50s or 60s or something. Like it was modern, set in modern times back then. And that's they took that and they put three of the apes in spacesuits and had them land on Earth, and it really felt more like the book that way. They switched the apes into humans. Yeah, I got you the Van Helsing movies. That Van Helsing movie just that's oh my god, that just sets me off. Then we have Akira. Akira. What can I say about Akira? This movie is known for many things. This movie is legendary. This movie really blew up, in my opinion. I mean, there was already anime fans and things like that out there. Don't get me wrong, but I think this is the one that really made it blow up in America, at least. And that motorcycle is one of the most iconic images, for my money, in pop culture. When I went and watched Ready Player One and I saw them using the Akira bike, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, that was enough for me right there with that movie. That would have been enough. They had Iron Giant, they had King Kong chasing the guy on an Akira bike. I mean, I was just like a little kid on the edge of my seat. My friends were laughing at me. But seeing the Akira bike did it for me. But Akira, I pick up some of the comic series that are square bound when I can find them to actually read the story. But this was just fantastic. I mean, who cannot love Akira? Akira, Tetsu, Kindai, half of the dialogue in that comic was them shouting each other's names. Well, yeah, that's part of the magic, man. Now we're going way back with this one. And I'm trying to think, I want to say GURPS, but that's not right. But there was a role playing game, and we had touched on it a little bit. I went from D&D, took this. Everybody got out of D&D. A couple years later, my friends got me into White Wolf, where we played as vampires and werewolves, and then kind of played around with some other games. Now, the thing about playing around with, I'm not saying I was exclusive to D&D back in the day, because when you went to try to find this stuff to buy, it'd be mixed up with other stuff. I had Toon, where you were supposed to role play as a cartoon and some other things like that. I still wish I could find the Elric of Mellabone role playing game. It's big bucks. I had it in my hands back in the day. You had a James Bond. There's all kinds of role playing games. But when Johnny Mnemonic came out, there was like a cyberpunk role playing game you could play. And I hate that I'm going blank on it stuff. But when I'm watching Johnny Mnemonic, I'm sitting here and I'm catching myself and I'm like, why does this seem familiar? Why does this seem familiar? And then it just dawned on me. I'm like, this is that role playing game. But Johnny Mnemonic, I think this is fantastic. And what was the best thing for me? Dolph Lundgren popped up in this damn movie playing a freaking religious zealot. I was just sort of like in heaven watching this movie. I was digging it, man. It was like in your face. It was flashy. It was different than anything, and just a fantastic movie. Toon was a lot of fun to play. I only played it once or twice. I just sold, yeah, I sold the games. I sold the books just like I don't know 4 years ago. It was called Cyberpunk 2020. Scott, I'm not saying that you're wrong, but that is not the game I'm remembering. So I could be at fault here, but that is not the game. It's not getting me. Yeah, but Johnny Mnemonic is just a fun movie, and of course, it's like Keanu Reeves got a whole new career after Matrix, and this is pre-Matrix. But yeah, I could watch this. Matrix is the better movie. I know it, but this is the one I could watch more than Matrix. I really could. I got a kick out of this one. So basically, he's a mule for of information. He has cybernetic parts in his brain that can only hold so much information, and he's trying to get enough money, I think, to retire, do one last hit or something. So he downloads way too much, and not only is it killing him, but it's corrupting the information in his head. And he has all these people coming after him to kill him, to pretty much chop his head off and just get the information out of it. He's on a time limit. Yeah, Ponadius. That's cool, man. Yeah, we're just shooting the breeze here. Nice. Okay, Wizards. Somebody actually found my channel a couple of days ago. Watched, I guess, I'm going to assume their first video of mine. And whatever video that was they were talking about, they went ahead and told me I need to check out Wizards. Um, Wizards is the one that started a lot of this stuff for me. I was 4 years old, sitting in a community college with who's my, I guess my stepdad, watching a double feature of Wizards, and I can't believe I'm going blank on the other one. It was a Backski cartoon, another Backski cartoon. But anyway, Wizards is the one that started it. As a kid, I would watch Wizards on VHS over and over and over when it finally came out, and Heavy Metal. Those were the two big cartoons for me. In the house that I still have the VHS tape that my stepdad had put, he put Wizards, uh, Flight of Dragons, Heavy Metal, and another one on one VHS tape, and that's what I still have it because we watched it over and over. That thing has got to be Fire and Ice was the other one, I think, um, on that VHS tape. And I can go up there and pull it now, but I will not stick it in a DVD player. That thing is now well, it's got to be like 35 years old. And, I'll pull it out and show another video. But Wizards was the one for me. Von Bodie. Oh, man, Von Bodie. Animation. Cobalt 60s should have been another comic book I stuck in here for post-apocalyptic stuff. Escape from New York. This morning I made a big breakfast and I had Death Proof playing while I was Quentin Tarantino's Death Proof playing, and Kurt Russell is just so underrated in Hollywood. I mean, he's just so underrated, man. He's just really great in everything he does, and he's got like that Clint Eastwood inspired husky voice in this one, and the dystopia playing it straight. Oh, I just love this freaking movie. Snake Plissken is the man, and we've got another staple of a post-apocalyptic world, the falling of the Statue of Liberty. All right, and I judge people. I do judge people. Right? One of the few things I judge people is that if you are a man and you have a movie collection, you have to have the Road Warrior in it. You have to. And then I have Fury Road. And I couldn't get over that the same director did the second one. He was 70 years old when he directed this movie, and it felt like the same world. This movie, the opening shot and the ending shot shows you that this is a film. That's what gets me. It's a freaking film with what he's done, the legend of it, how Mad Max isn't quite the center of a story, but things happen around him, but he ends up becoming pivotal in it and stuff, right? And then who is this? Yeah, this is why I get that Urban Dude and Tom Hardy mixed up and stuff, right? I mean, Mel Gibson went ahead and cut his own hair to give Mad Max that certain look. He's like, if you're in a post-apocalyptic world, you'd be cutting your own hair and stuff like that, all fighting for gas and stuff. And I did enjoy this Mad Max Fury Road. I mean, it was just really, really good. Okay, bit off topic. Have you seen the film Cube from 1997? No, I have not. Like Akira, Gymna Wars was an old manga and novel series. May have inspired it. It was later made to a movie called Armageddon, Gymna Wars. I don't know, but I will definitely check those out. I also want to mention Robotech. I was there at the ground floor of Robotech hitting America, the Macross wars and stuff like that. But it was more or less the games that came out where you could play. You get the field and you would play the gigantic Robotech robots, whatever, and you would piece together the story as it came out. It wasn't everywhere, and I know there's a cartoon series, but only the people that had satellite could watch it. But yeah, I'll definitely check those out. Okay, and then to me, my favorite, the king of dystopia, and so much has come out of this and stuff. The Blade Runner movies, Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, based on Philip K. Dick stuff. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and stuff like that. I can watch every version of this movie. There's a theatrical version with the voiceover that Harrison Ford and a lot of people hated, gave it a film noir feel. Director's cut, ultimate cut. I love every cut of this movie. My favorite is the final cut. Don't get me wrong, but I love this movie, the feel of it. And welcome to, what is it, 2019, I think is when this takes place. That's what's really cool about a lot of these movies. Either it seems like they picked the 1980s, 1990s, or the 2000 teens as a place where the dystopia happens. So we're living in it right now. The movie was script by Katsuhiro Otomo, who made Akira. Oh, that's awesome. Robotech until Minimal started singing. Yeah. Uh, First one's amazing. The second one is just shit. Cash in. Talking about this one, the Blade Runner 2049. We talked about a couple things here. 2049. It was cool to see it, but I probably watched it twice, and I cannot count how many times I've watched Blade Runner since. I'm trying. I'm pretty sure I did see it in the theater, or it could be wishful thinking, or I saw it after. No, I saw it in the theater. I did somehow end up seeing it in the theater. I remember sitting there. I remember hearing the voiceover, and I remember thinking this is like those old '40s detective movies. That's how I was watching Blade Runner the first time. I thought it was a detective movie. You know what I mean? It didn't feel like a sci-fi movie. It was a detective movie in the beginning. And even though it's about a bounty hunter going after robots, androids, if you will, that voiceover in my little kid mind still made me think I was watching a detective movie. Yeah, not a fan of the second one. Yeah, the second one, I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know what they were thinking. There were some good choices, and there's a lot of bad choices in it. But now, guys, this isn't, of course, I'm going to put that out there. This is not the end all, be all of post apocalyptic, dystopian stuff. There's so much stuff out there. I have V for Vendetta here, Hulk's Future Imperfect. It seems like I had more books here. Oh, I do. I do. Would you guys like me to keep going? I covered them up with the Judge Dredd stuff. Talk about Akira. We've already talked about Akira. This is the series I'm trying to do. And there's one, A Boy and His Dog. Yeah, yeah. There is. I saw A Boy and His Dog. Believe it or not, one of the first illegally uploaded movies on YouTube, and it had. Oh my God, Don Johnson from the story Boy and His Dog. Was that Harlan Ellison or Ray Bradbury? I think it was Ellison. And I love that freaking movie. I love that story. I have it downstairs somewhere. It's one of the few stories I went out and really dug up to find. Ellison, yeah, Harlan Ellison. Oh my God, that story is so. And then to go from the movie to the book and see what he had in there. Ellison had like the porn theater where it's part of culture and the robots that tied you down and the underground world and just all that stuff. And then it comes down to picking the girl or the dog, and who does a boy go with? I mean, it's just so good. Telepathic dogs. Now here's one I was going to ask about. I have not read this because I'm looking for issue 1 and 2. This was a 4-issue series, but Paul Pope came out with this whole idea of Batman Year 100. This is in the year 2039, and I just know that we don't know if it's Bruce Wayne or not, and there's another new kind of Robin. But there's fascism with the police and stuff, and this Batman is rising up. And I didn't want to read the last 2 chapters and stuff, right? So if anybody knows anything about that. Now, I got a little bit frustrated before coming on here to do the show because I couldn't find one DVD, and I know it's here. But Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind, that's the other movie on that VHS tape I was talking about. This came out as Warriors of the Wind, and it's one of those movies that was cut up terribly in America when it hit. Even the movie poster had a character on it that's not in the movie. It's just so bad. So I'm always picking up this. I think there's 8 of these released in America as a set of miniseries. I could be wrong, but I'm always picking these up when I can find them to get the original story of Nausicaa, Valley of the Wind. Absolutely love this. This Studio Ghibli. I guess their first feature, and it always stuck out in my mind because I always felt when I was watching the horrible Warriors of the Wind cut, I was like, this could have been great. I remember thinking this could have been great, and that's one of the things that made me mad about it. A Boy and His Dog inspired Mad Max and Fallout. I could see that. I could see that. Batman Year 100 is one of favorite surprise finds. Cool, cool. The Last Man on Earth book and movies. Last Man on Earth book and movies. Here's the problem. The Last Man of Earth has been used a lot. So I know there's been a TV series. Are you talking about like Omega Man, I Am Legend, Vincent Price's Last Man on Earth? Vincent Price's Last Man on Earth is my favorite Vincent Price movie. That movie is so damn good. And then we have like the movies that are ingrained in our pop culture, man. Terminator. Okay, this is the now comics #1 with Alex Ross's first work, but the Terminator movies, so damn good. I mean, I'll be back. You know, it's got everything catchphrases. And I watched Terminator Genesis. I found it for $3, and I watched it. Not bad, not great, but not bad. The first two are all you really need. Sweet Tooth. Okay, I've just got the issue. I haven't read it. I get the idea that this. I think this is the one where he can eat flesh and get the memories out of it or something. I don't know. But supposedly this is in a post-apocalyptic world or dystopian world or something. I don't know. So if anybody's read Sweet Tooth, leave something in the comments. Is it worth tracking down the rest of them? Now, the two books that I'm going to push, and I'm sorry they're here at the end. If you know, and I feel, I feel pretty good for you guys if you made it this far. That I would recommend for anybody to go get. But we have the end. When we go to post-apocalyptic stories and things, the one that people, and we bring up the Hulk, everybody goes straight to Future Imperfect. But Peter David came up with this story, the retelling of Prometheus, if you will, with the Hulk, the end. And Dale Keown returned to the character to do this. This was a one-shot. They were coming out with a bunch of miniseries and one-shots called The End for the characters and bringing back creative, big teams. Chris Claremont came back to do the X-Men The End, right? But anyway, this was a great story, great art. The Hulk gets fucking tortured like you would not believe in it in a couple of places. And then the best use of radiation and nuclear bombs, in my opinion, is Garth Ennis coming on here with Richard Corbin and doing Punisher the End, where the Punisher just, oh my God, he's an unstoppable force. He's walking through radiation, he's rotting. His flesh is rotting. He's dying on his way to take out the last great evil. And when you find out what the last great evil is, I don't know. You might cheer. You might be like, really? That's it? Just so fantastic. And Corbin, man, you will need a shower after this. Corbin's textures, Corbin can draw some stuff to where you just feel freaking dirty and filthy, like you just walk through some of that stuff. Great stuff. Strike Force Moratori. This has a cult following. There's reasons Marvel don't. Marvel finally came around to reprinting it, I think, after 20 some years. But it's an alien invasion. Things have affected the Earth, if you will. And in this one, you get recruited to get superpowers, but it's a death sentence. Those powers will kill you within a year. So Strike Force Moratorium for those we who are about to die, but you can get power so you can fight the aliens. And the world's been affected in such a way that Roanoke, Virginia is now the coast of, that's the coast. That's where the waters have risen, and that's the new coast of America. So that's probably about 3 to 4 hours inland. And Roanoke, I can be in Roanoke in like an hour and 20 minutes from where I'm at. That's what fascinated me. I was like, I've been there. It was one of the first places I'd been to referenced in a comic book when I was a kid. I thought that was cool. Speaking of post-apocalypse, we have to mention Thundar the Barbarian. We do. I have my bootleg complete set there I bought at Heroes Con. Completely bootleg. Thundar the Barbarian, a Kirby, Steve Gerber classic. Ukla the Monk, Ariel, and Thundar, who kept his woman in check. Woman? That's all he had to say to her, and Ariel was like right on the spot. Cracked me up. Even as a kid, I knew they were some kind of couple, even though they didn't say it. Those movies were loose adaptations of a book called The Last Man on Earth book by Isaac Asimov. I thought they were based on... Oh my God, what was... I thought they were based on I Am Legend. So, I'm not real sure. I'm going to look up The Last Man on Earth book by Isaac Asimov. But to me, Last Man on Earth, Omega Man with Charlton Heston, and then I Am Legend with Will Smith were supposed to all be the same, based off the same book. I'll have to look it up. Is I Am Legend a comic book? I saw a comic book adaptation of it. Yeah, it got me wondering now. I'll be doing some homework after this. They were. I Am Legend was a story by Richard Matheson. Okay, cool. And we're going into something that I don't think you'll see this. This is out of left field. This is like pure fun because I found Volume 1, Season 1 with 33 episodes of this show from the 80s on DVD recently. And I was watching it, and when they land on the planet Earth, something's happened. It's way up in the future. It looks like there was a great disaster that went on, but I want to put out there Thundercats fighting Mumra. Thundercats could be a post-apocalyptic story. They're in the savage world left. You know, it's great stuff. Great stuff. Isaac Asimov wrote a lot of books. Yeah, I don't know if it's true or not, but I saw an interview where someone told him, you know, they told him how many books he had published up to a certain point, and then he said, "Well, I put out a book every 6 weeks." So Isaac Asimov for decades was writing a book every 6 weeks, according to him, and I'm pretty sure that was from the '60s. I want to say '70s. I don't know, but anyway, I remember seeing that interview. Who did they ho yell better, Thundercats or Hexall Jim Duggan? Oh, the Thundercats. Who hoed better? It'd been Thundercats. Oh, don't beat yourself up, Cayman X. But I do that all the time. There's so much genre stuff and so many references and so many books. It's not a big deal. So I kind of like how we're ending with Thundercats. I'm a Masters of the Universe guy. It's in my blood. But I had a respect for all the other stuff back there. Black Star, I've got an action figure over there. If you had a magical sword, I was down. You know, that's all there is to it. All right, guys, we got 14 people watching here. That's pretty good for a Sunday midday for this channel. Like, comment, share, tweet, do all this stuff. Bring some people back where we can talk about pure comics the best we can if you're into that kind of stuff. And as always, leave topics that you want me to kind of bring up in the comments below. I'll probably, like I said, this is just scratching the surface of post-apocalyptic stuff. I enjoy that genre, and I'll probably be able to do another one when I pull out some other stuff. Right now, I got to put all this crap back up and go downstairs and get back to work. I'm actually working out of the house today, so I just kind of took a break to do this. All right, guys, later. Thanks for everybody for popping in.